We are Rogue Media Sports.
but there does feel like there's just like he should be doing a little bit more. Number one pick, one of those not generational quarterback prospects, but one you would punt the whole season for, which is essentially what the Bears would have done if they had that number one overall pick. In fact, it was Carolina's pick. But like we were making the graphics last year, Caleb Williams, Patriot. A little bit of Drake May, a little bit of Jaden Daniels, but the guy was Caleb Williams. And this is going to make for a blockbuster performance, or this is going to make for a blockbuster game on Sunday, or at least a blockbuster headline. Number one versus number three. And if Drake May comes out and plays the way that he's played and the Patriots win the game, that's going to make for some interesting discourse. Caleb Williams throws a couple picks, kind of running around to nowhere. That is going to make for a conversation. Should it this early in both of those guys' careers? Probably not. But best believe that is what's going to happen. And by the way, Drake May has been a heck of a running threat, which I guess they're probably trying to make Caleb Williams into a pure pocket passer. But that was one of the things that made him so dangerous in college, is that he could get outside the pocket. Drake May has been, his team's best rusher the last couple of weeks. He was their leading rusher last week at 95 yards. And he is the reason that this offensive line has looked somewhat capable, because he can get outside the pocket and make plays with no offensive line, no wide receivers. Caleb has not really shown that much of that aspect so far with the Bears. And by the way, he did not play well last week. 22 of 41 for 217, no touchdowns, no picks. His lowest yards per attempt since week 2, which was, those first 2 weeks were pretty bad for Caleb in terms of those numbers. But it's really been since that game against Jacksonville, which was right before the Patriots game, the Patriots against Jacksonville. He threw 4 touchdowns, and it was like, all right, here's Caleb Williams. Here he is. 2 games since, he's thrown for less than 350 yards total and has not thrown a touchdown. And he was not good at all in that Washington game, which they lost in the Hail Mary. So it's been back-to-back pretty bad weeks for Caleb Williams, and he took a hit at the end of that one last week. They lost the Cardinals 29-9, and he's taking a hit in the final minute of the game. Golly, we knew Eberflus was stupid, but come on. It fascinates me how much these two teams really line up, because I thought the Bears had a better roster and a better situation going into the season. But you look at these two teams, Bears have a better record, but you look at these two teams, both rookie quarterbacks, both have put up pretty good numbers at some point this year. Both have head coaches who don't know what the hell they're doing. Both have offensive lines that don't know what the hell they're doing. It's pretty interesting how even these two teams are, even though the Bears have a couple more wins. And so all things being equal, the way the better quarterback performs in this week will certainly hold pole position of like who is the second best rookie quarterback behind Jaden Daniels. They're all battling for that. But whoever wins this and whoever has the better game, I guess, is going to be that second best guy behind Jaden Daniels for rookies.
You say that, and I ask
if you throw Bo Nix at me.
Well, so here's a philosophy I have with rookie quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think fit matters way more than we even say it does. And so Jaden Daniels getting Cliff Kingsbury as his OC has been huge.
Yeah.
Especially when the Bears, I think Cliff would have rather been with the Bears with Caleb, and they weren't interested, right? I think Bo Nix being with Sean Payton makes a tremendous difference. Whereas if Bo Nix was with a lot of other situations, I don't know.
We could have said the same about Mac Jones with Josh McDaniels a few years ago. He was not the most skilled, but he had the best season out of them because he had a better fit, better team.
And I am pretty convinced that Mahomes' greatness, he's incredible, is in large part due to both Andy Reid and sitting behind Alex Smith for a year, which is why I think the second best quarterback in this class actually might turn out to be Michael Penix.
Really?
Yes.
You're based off that?
Based on...
Because Mahomes did it.
Based on, I think he's in a good situation and he's sitting behind a vet. And I think,
But we don't know if he's
and-
good,
and-
Scotty.
well, but as people, okay, so I haven't been with Rogue very
It was a
long.
huge reach.
I haven't been with Rogue very long, so most people don't know this. But I
Mhm.
said going into last year's draft, Caleb is overrated. He is not the Mahomes comp. To me, Penix is the Mahomes comp. Penix is more mobile.
Okay,
And
all right.
Penix had the biggest arm in the draft. I mean, as far as deep
Sure.
ball, I mean, and so to me, that's
Drake's
the guy
pretty
with
good.
the highest upside. But it's hard to argue that Jaden Daniels is just
Yeah, I mean,
blown
don't
us away,
overthink
right?
it too much.
Yeah.
Like Jaden Daniels been pretty good.
But to your point,
And I've
Drake
loved listening from
May
Drake May, man.
is playing very well in what seems to be a pretty
just
bad
nothing, just
situation for a rookie
nothing
quarterback.
offensively,
Right.
nothing.
right.
But he's Michael Penix.
I'm a big
Scotty's
Michael-
on the
big-
Penix
big
train
Michael Penix
because
fan
he's
over
sitting
here.
behind someone. I mean, the Mahomes situation obviously pretty similar to the Brady situation. I mean, Mahomes is taken in the first round. He's the heir apparent. That part's different. But you both sat behind Pro Bowl quarterbacks, had great coaches. Took a while to get in there. Brady took a season plus, and Mahomes, it basically takes a whole season. I don't know, man. That's a take. That's a take, Scotty. Just because Penix is sitting behind Kirk Cousins.
I'm here for the long-term takes. We'll come back in
Woo!
about 2 years and reevaluate.
Who's the coach? Raheem Morris? Oh,
that offense? But think about the way that
they've got
Atlanta-
weapons.
How has that Atlanta offense turned around so well this year?
Kirk Cousins? It's
Yeah.
not Michael Penix.
Well,
I don't think it's Michael Penix.
you know, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find.
He's not playing.
He is gonna play by next season.
Probably.
You don't.
Well,
draft-
what was the contract with Kirk? How many years? 3?
I mean, more than. I was shocked. I mean, we're all shocked they drafted him, right? But
Yes.
I think his
You weren't.
upside-
You were like, who wants Patrick Mahomes?
Well,
Go,
but
go and
Mahomes-
get him.
But Mahomes went after freaking Mitch Trubisky. And,
Sure, and Rosen?
Deshaun Watson.
I thought Watson went right after him.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, Rosen. Maybe.
Was it Rosen?
Dude, it was
I think it was Rosen. Yeah.
somebody who's
Yeah, Trubisky.
Terrible.
And who was the number 1 pick?
Trubisky was the number 1 pick.
No, you know who it was Miles Garrett. Trubisky was the first quarterback, though. He's the number 2
There we go,
pick.
there
You're
we
right. You're right. Yeah, and I think Mahomes was 10 and Watson was 12. It could have been vice versa, though. I actually don't remember. Patriots did not have a first round pick that year. They
I
got to
think
take it
you're
away
right. I
from
think-
Deflategate and got Brandon Cooks instead. They got the year before taken for Deflategate, traded the first round pick in 17 for Cooks. We're gonna find this out. But ultimately, this game will determine, like, all right, it's Jaden Daniels and who else? Because whoever loses this game will be the source of derision. You know, whoever loses this game will catch some heat, especially, I think, if it's Caleb Williams. If Caleb Williams loses to Drake May, the people will not be happy with Caleb nor with Eberflus, who they already don't like. And they'll say, how is this situation losing to the Patriots? And their dumpster fire over there. I know it's a rookie quarterback, but we've got all these weapons. We had a good defense coming into this year, and we're losing to the Patriots. No way. So that will be a big time headline, whoever wins it. What do you got? 17
you're right.
draft?
I was misremembering. Mahomes was second, 10th overall. It's so funny when you look back at drafts all these years later, though. Leonard Fournette went number 4 overall. Christian McCaffrey went number 8 in that draft.
What a steal. Jesus.
Do you remember? You're pretty good at this history stuff. Do you
Let's
remember
try it.
just before Mahomes who the pick was at number 9 overall in the 2017 NFL draft?
God, I would have said Rosen, but I guess that's not right.
Rosen was the draft before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right. Then I just cut that total.
I only know because I just looked.
Number 9 pick in the draft, 2017. Would the position or the team, like, which one of those would give it away more?
Probably the position.
All right, give me the team.
The Bengals.
Bengals. Oh. Oh, man. Trey Hendrickson. That's not right.
John Ross.
John Ross. Oh, my God. Yeah, I should have got that. Receiver from Washington,
Yes.
John Ross.
Yes, the fastest guy.
Oh,
at the
my
time.
God. Just, you know what I love about John Ross? The fact that he didn't go to Baylor. because so many of these guys you point to with no route trees, only good receiver because they're fast. All those guys you talk about went to Baylor except for John Ross. John Ross, one pick before Mahomes. Oh, God. And 3 years later, I guess, they were picking a quarterback.
I could argue
Golly.
that the greatest wide receiver in Cleveland Browns history was Baylor Bear.
I mean, had a hell of a season. Great Patriot, Josh Gordon. Great Patriot. Super Bowl champion Patriot, technically. Golly, John Ross. John Ross Ewing. Don't call him. Anyway, I don't know. I think I every time I get to Friday, I think enough. I'm like, unless the Patriots are playing a team that is much better than them, which is most teams, but the last couple of weeks has not been that, with the Jets, Tennessee, now Chicago, next the Rams. Every Friday, I'm like, you know what? Drake might just make enough plays. Drake May might just make enough plays to win. It was one play away from winning that last week when they had no business winning it. Did throw 2 picks. But he's always one play away from them winning the thing. I thought they should have went for 2. I really do think they should have went for 2 on Sunday. I said that on Monday, though. So, prediction. Instead of a prediction, how about this? Scotty, right now, I'm putting you on the spot. Would you rather have Caleb Williams or Drake May?
Drake
We're
May.
not going to. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, Drake May. Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to hold you to it forever.
That's okay. I think going into the draft, I would not have said that, even though I was not high on Caleb. But now that I've seen Caleb enough, I don't think it's going to work.
And like, I
did you see?
I by the time the Patriots weren't going to get the number 1 pick, and we knew it, like I just didn't really pay attention much to Caleb Williams. But I just remember thinking that leading up to the draft of like, I'm really just thinking between Jaden Daniels and Drake May. And maybe it was the subconscious telling me I didn't really love Caleb Williams because I didn't, but I understood why he was the number 1 pick.
Well,
and maybe it's just because I knew that Patriots weren't going to get him.
Dude, again, it's the Mahomes comp is so warped because the people think Mahomes and they think run around and improvise and those incredible plays he can make, but they don't realize how often Mahomes just stands in there, reads the defense, and delivers the ball. Caleb, I think to a fault, gets off script and tries to make something happen 12 times a game when he doesn't need to. He overcomplicates it to me. And I just don't think he's that good.
I'll say this. It sounds like a weird thing to say about a 2-7 team versus a 4-4 team, but I think Drake May elevates his team more than Caleb Williams does.
Agreed.
Which again, I know people are going to point to, well, he hasn't won a game. He started and finished. I know, but I watch every snap of this team. I know just how bad this team is. And I saw it for the first 5 weeks. We all did. We saw how piss poor this team is. We saw how bad this roster is. Drake May makes them respectable. He keeps them in games. He makes plays. He gets a bunch of guys involved. Caleb Williams has a pretty good roster for a rookie quarterback. And they're sitting there at 4-4. And he's had some very bad performances this year, and he hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 weeks. I think Drake May elevates his team more than Caleb Williams does. And it might not show in a win on Sunday, but if you watch the game, I think you'll agree with me. The Bruins won a game last night, which is pretty incredible. After we dumped on them for a couple of days, they went and they beat a team they should have beaten once again, and it was not without drama. We'll catch you up on that when we return to the Cam Show.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe
More relaxed. What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The first thing you referred to that I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the Bradford?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
Pete has picked Caleb Williams because Drake May's white. He said that. I heard that. He also wondered why there was so much change on the floor. Pete, how much change do you think is there in that pile?
$14. I see a lot of quarters.
I think it's more like, I think it's a little bit less. I would say like $9.53.
Okay. I'm going.
You want to count that before we go on, see how much it is?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Do it, dude. Yeah.
All right.
I'm interested. All right. Do you want to set like an over under?
Yeah. I'm
going
to
to
say
split the difference at like 11 something.
Yeah. I'm going to say it's $11.70.
Okay. So then let's put the over under at 11. So you'll take the over and an exact guess at 11.70. Yep. I'll take the under at, I'm going to stick with 9.53. I'm facing my fears. 53 is a number I really hate. So I'm going to go with 9.53. We were eyeballing it earlier, but this is a good way to get Pete involved. Good way to get this thing involved. Anyway, we'll get an update on that from Pete later. We do want to talk about the Bruins because I've dumped on them the last few days, and they're bullies. The Bruins are bullies. They are going to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they're going to lose to all the teams they're supposed to lose to. And last night was a little bit of in between because they almost lost to a team that they should have beaten. Calgary, not a great thing going right now. By the way, Calgary, man, I've got to point out Calgary. I look back at, what was that, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, the Tkachuk-Huberdeau trade. And it was one of the great trades, like entertainment value ever. 1-for-1, similar style players, right? Both kind of faces of their franchise. Tkachuk a little disgruntled. And you almost looked at it, you were like, both winners here. They both get guys they want, top-end players, guys who want to play there. There you go. Bring a lot of the same things to the table. Calgary is not a playoff team, and the Panthers have gone to back-to-back finals and have won the Stanley Cup. Thanks in no small part to Matthew Tkachuk. Like, what a win for the Panthers in that deal. Anyway, that is nothing. I don't want to get too Matthew Tkachuk'd out here. But last night, Bruins play Calgary. It's a game they should win, and they almost don't. But for a lot of that game, man, it was like, okay, finally. They're bringing some energy. They're bringing offensive zone time, 5-on-5. They're taking the play to Calgary. There's life in the building. There's a little bit of a scuffle in the second period after the Bruins have gone up 3-1. And that place was alive, man. You could feel it through the TV. They score early, earliest they've scored, quickest they've scored this whole season. And Calgary comes right back, evens it at 1-1. Bruins get 2 in quick succession in the second period. They're up 3-1, and the place is bumping, man. They go up 3-1 into the third period, and before the halfway point of the third period, it is 3-3. Marchand, dumb penalty, leads to a power play goal. Nazem Kadri, he's the captain. Can't be doing that as the captain. Pete knows. Nazem Kadri, nice little snapshot on a 2-on-1. It's a good shot, but it's probably one Korpisalo should have. I thought he probably should have had the first goal too. But it's 3-3. Overtime is up and down, all kinds of entertainment value. And who scores the winner but the captain, Brad Marchand? Scores on his own rebound with 20 seconds left in overtime. And it's like, whew. But like, I was into that. I was like, hell yes. If you can't celebrate a win like this, then you don't know what being a fan of a mediocre team is like. He commits the penalty in the third period. He redeems himself with the overtime winner. That's what the captain does. Brad, don't call me Nancy Marchand. And if you know who Nancy Marchand is, you know ball. You really know ball. But what it does is it gives the Bruins some momentum into a big-time matchup tomorrow. Little hockey night in Canada, Saturday Night Fever, classic NHL, Atlantic Division, Boston Bruins, Ottawa Senators. This one means something to me, man, because Ottawa is a team that should have been worse than you coming into this season, but it looks like they're better than you. And that's going to be a battle for that playoff spot in this division between the Senators and the Bruins. And this is a Senators team that's been knocking on the playoffs door for the last few years, and they got better in the offseason, thanks in large part to getting their number one goaltender. And yes, tomorrow night, we will have Linus Ullmark versus Jeremy Swayman for the first time.
Yes!
If that doesn't get your blood boiling, I don't know what will. Two teams from the original 24, original 28, whatever it is, squaring off. Ullmark versus Swayman. I almost combined them to Ullman, the great goalie. Ullmark versus Swayman. Linus has a chance to really shove it to the Bruins and shove it to Don Sweeney. And he has plenty of opportunities to do that this year and over the next 4 or 5 years or whatever that contract goes. I think it's a 4-year deal he just signed with the Sens. None of us wanted to see Ullmark go, even those of us who were Swayman people. You know, I believe in Swayman being the number one goalie, but didn't love that trade from the beginning. I thought the Bruins tried to shoehorn that trade before the NHL draft so that they could get the Sens first-round pick, which was 25. Not a good pick. But they went in there, they got an NHL goalie in return, and Jonas Korpisalo, obviously much worse than Ullmark, and you tried to get rid of the cap hit, and you didn't get rid of the cap hit. You got a fourth-line guy in Kastelic who's played well, served a role. You got one of the worst starting goalies in the league last year, and you only got about $1.15 million off the cap with that deal. And you picked a guy in Dean Letourneau who could be something, but he's going to be something in 3 or 4 years. He's an absolute project playing as a freshman at BC right now. So didn't love that trade. It looked all the more bad as this Swayman thing prolonged, but this could be the seed of a little mini rivalry, because if Ullmark brings the Senators to the playoffs, and look, beyond then we know Ullmark's playoff record, but if he continues to build this team into a playoff team in Ottawa, and he's the backstop and he's the number one goalie, and the Bruins continue to go south, which is what it looks like, that is not going to make Don Sweeney or Jeremy Swayman look good, no matter whose fault it is, no matter if Jeremy Swayman's a real good goalie, but the rest of his roster stinks, which could well be the case. That is not going to look good that you went with that guy and got rid of Swayman or rid of Ullmark when you could have kept them both for another year and then made your decision. Not great. Not great. But we see the first matchup tomorrow night. Hockey night in Canada. I don't know if it is or not, but it should be. Senators, Bruins, Ullmark, Swayman. Which of these teams, these are important games because one of these teams is not going to make the playoffs in the Atlantic. And honestly, right now, if I had to choose, I think it's going to be the Bruins that don't make it. I think the Senators have a better roster right now, which I didn't think I'd be saying. But for right now, we can celebrate the Brad Marchand overtime winner. Next on the show, we have Brad Marchand's biggest fan, Pete Souza. He will be with us on the Cam Show coming up.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy. I'm happy to have you today.
Nah, thanks for having me. And you know we always family, no matter where I'm at.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
We are so back. Yeah.
I don't see myself. Hello.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to fix one thing. Scotty, come on, man. You stay right there. Sure world.
No, it's looking like the Drake May headshot a little bit.
Drake May.
You're not a Drake May guy, huh?
I mean, I don't know enough about him, really.
Yeah, it's fine.
So I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm a Drake May.
You don't like UNC.
Well, you know, I think I have some Trubisky, like a little bit of that hangover, you know.
You're not a Bears fan.
Doesn't matter. He sucked.
I know, but like it's not hurting you.
Well, it was a little bit because
Why?
Okay, I'll tell you why.
Oh, we've got some great quarterback takes on the show.
No. Well, being in North Carolina for a while, like I was, I have Tar Heels in my life, and I don't hate them by any stretch. And some of them were very excited by Mitchell Trubisky and when he was drafted. So I was like low-key pulling for him. And then he had a couple games, if you remember, his rookie year where he was like, I think he threw like 5 touchdowns and a half. And it was like, okay, maybe something's happening here. And then like, wow, what a thud. He was a mega bust, Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, number 2 pick in the draft, first quarterback taken.
Was it second? I don't think it was second.
It was.
It was?
Yeah, Myles Garrett was number 1.
And he was second?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awful.
Well, we just went over the 17 draft. Well, that's the same draft. Yeah. Mahomes picked 10th. Do you know who was picked right before him? It was a wide receiver. I didn't get it.
7. Oh, was it the guy from Baylor?
No.
Corey, what's his face?
No. Coleman was 2015.
Okay. Who?
But actually a very similar player, John Ross from Washington.
Wow.
With Cincinnati. You remember him?
I sure
That was
do.
the first time Washington made the playoff. He was catching passes from Jake Browning. Speaking of the Bengals legend, Jake Browning.
You know, it's quarterbacks are really tough. And I think that there's a lot of bullshit out there that like people know. People don't know. I mean, they really don't. If you look on the number of quarterbacks that are taken in the top 5, top 10. I'm sure somebody has this information out there somewhere, but like it's more often than not, they're huge misses.
Oh, dude, I saw a great
They don't get it
stat.
right. They don't get it right. The people who are paid to do this, who spend more time than anyone in the world doing this, consistently get it wrong. I mean, it's in there in black and white. So it's kind of hilarious. And if you think about our whole mission and what we do here, what, like what scouts do, and it's
Of which you were.
I mean, I don't know about that. I work for Football
For Scouting
Scouts.
Network.
Yeah, I did for sure. But it's just a lot of stuff being thrown up against the wall. And I think the key is to having a successful NFL organization is having an identity, knowing who you are, and building your team around that identity. And I think that will get you to where you want to go.
Dude, I cannot find the stat. It's
so-
really bugging me.
I think that's why, like, sometimes when I'm asking people, like if I talk to Mosley, hey, what do you think the Cowboys' identity is? I always try to figure out like who these teams think they are, because a lot of times I think they truly don't know who they are and what they are. And you see it a lot of times in who they draft. You often see a team driving a round peg into a square hole, and it doesn't work out.
I can't find the tweet. It was like about all of these quarterbacks taken in the first round the last 20 years. And here is the portion, like the percentage of them who have been benched at some point during their first 2 or 3 seasons. And it said one of them of the 25 that had been benched in their first 2 seasons, only one of them had come back and either made a Pro Bowl or won a playoff game, because they were talking about it for Anthony Richardson. Any idea who that one guy was?
Do you know?
Yeah.
So a guy who had been benched and came back to win a playoff game
or make the Pro Bowl.
A quarterback. In how many years? How many years?
20 years. This is a really tough thing to throw at you. I wouldn't unless we had just been talking about this person.
And we were just talking about it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Who is it? I'm brain farting right now.
Double doink.
Trubisky.
Mitch Trubisky. Yeah.
Oh, duh.
He's the only one.
Really?
Yeah. Which, I don't know, feels odd because some of these guys have had their renaissance and whatever.
Yeah.
Like a Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold. I don't know when they were benched, so maybe it was just past the time frame. But like, Darnold hasn't won a playoff game. I think Baker's won like 1, 2.
I mean, look what's going on with
it's just funny that Mitch
Young.
is the one because he did not have a renaissance. You know what I mean? Like, kind of. That 18 season was good, but but they fell right away.
It's so rare that these guys get put on the shelf and bounce back and have big careers. Like, that's why we talk about it when they do. That's why, like, Jim Plunkett is a guy who, like,
what a resurrection.
I mean, he was drafted by your Patriots.
Yeah.
And,
much like a situation that Drake May's in right now. No offensive line, no head coach, no front office, just letting them get killed out there.
And I think that's an issue in itself.
My dad saw all of Jim Plunkett's games.
He did?
Yeah, when they got season tickets was when they moved to Foxborough, which was 71, which is the year they drafted Plunkett number 1. And he was like, I just felt so bad for the guy. Just watching him get pummeled week after week after week.
Yeah.
And he gets labeled a bust because of it. He goes to Oakland and pretty good player. Not a Hall of Famer, but pretty good player. Wins the Super Bowl.
He won 2 Super Bowls, Cam.
2? Okay. And I thought it was just the 1. But
He won
yeah,
2
pretty
Super
good player,
Bowls.
man.
I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Tom Flores got in. Plunkett's going to get in.
Tom
Hopefully he'll be
Flores had a
alive.
better resume than Tony Dungy.
He won 2 Super Bowls.
I know.
Like,
Tony won 1 kind of by mistake. We drag Mike McCarthy through the mud, as we should.
Yeah.
Of kind of winning 1 by mistake. Tony Dungy was the same way, dude. They both had generational quarterbacks,
Well,
some of the best quarterbacks ever, and they made all these conference championship games, and they had a bunch of one and dones in there. At one point, Brady ended up surpassing this number, but in like 15 or 16. Brady had more or had as many playoff losses as Peyton Manning had one and dones. That's unthinkable that he was that much better than the next best quarterback. I don't know. So that partially goes to Tony Dungy as well. I don't know.
Well, it does. And the same thing happened to Dungy in Tampa.
But Dungy, elite commentator.
Are you joking or serious?
One of one analyst.
Okay. So Tony Dungy, I think Mike McCarthy. If Mike McCarthy was retired, we would speak differently of him.
Correct.
It's just the way it goes, dude. I mean,
once you go to another place, George Seifert, man, coached himself out of the Hall of Fame with that Carolina tenure.
Yeah, that was the Ray Caruth times. That was bad, man.
Yeah.
That was rough. He really never had much of a shot. That team went left. They had two guys. There was another guy, Fred Lane, who got killed by his girlfriend. Around the same time.
Really?
Yeah, it got really dark there for a little bit. Fred Lane was pretty good too. It was a bummer for Seifert how that happened. But again, another guy who he's won almost by accident, right?
Yeah. Yeah, probably. That's how we look back on it.
But back
instead
to,
of like, wow, how did he fill in Bill Walsh's shoes and actually won a Super Bowl? Like it would be like if Steve Young played 3 more years with the Jets and they were just awful. It'd be like, oh, well, maybe we were kind of wrong about this guy.
Well, there's a philosophical argument too about the quarterbacks before I lose this thought.
Yes.
Let's boil it down to Baylor. Jake Spavital takes over, right? So everybody's excited because they're like, he runs that wide open air raid offense or whatever you want to call it, 5 wide, no backfield most of the time or sometimes. But that's what Texas high school quarterbacks run. That's what really all quarterbacks are running now in high school.
Shotgun, spread formation. Yep.
So you can plug them right in, okay? And we're seeing that more in the NFL. Like these systems aren't as foreign to these young guys as they matriculate and get drafted maybe in the top 10 into the NFL.
I think Mahomes is the first one of those, really.
Yeah, and you want to talk about a one-on-one. Like I think that was fool's gold for a lot of front office people to think that we can do this with someone else. He's just magical and special. But now, so we have this streamline of systems that kind of go through high school, college, and the NFL that's not necessarily a foreign language to these guys. It's a first language. And these quarterbacks get into the NFL and they get, hey, we're spending a lot of money. They should know the offense. We're going to play them right away. And it's to their detriment, I think, 80% of the time.
Like Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. It's not like basketball. Like when you say, you got to start the rookie because let's let him get reps. It's 82 games. Like football, you're the quarterback.
You can hide them a little bit in basketball too.
What's that?
You can hide them a little bit in basketball too.
Yeah, football, you're the quarterback. There's no more important. I mean, it's just dude, it's a lot. It's a lot for a young guy to take on. And I think with the NFL changing and the amount of pressure changing, it's just so much different now for the quarterback of the organization, and I don't say of the team, I say of the organization because that's the front porch,
Who do you think of this draft? Because I was just thinking about the Mahomes aspect, and I got to admit, I was wrong about Mahomes.
Yeah.
Not that anybody was listening to me as a sophomore in college, but I was like, man, and I liked Mahomes in college, I obviously saw him play a lot. He was a ton of fun. And I was like, but when has this worked?
Yeah.
When has this offense worked in the NFL? I mean, really, you look at all the Hal Mummy guys that did not work. Tim Couch, chief among them. Poor Tim Couch, man. He played a while. Like he was their starter for a while. And in Cleveland.
Yeah, Chris Palmer was their coach. He went into probably one of the worst situations you could go into. That was the Browns, but they were expansion Browns, and they sucked, man.
So I was like, dude, this is not going to work. Like, this is just not going to work. I think it's worked. I think the Mahomes thing has worked. I think I'm okay to return that verdict. I think it's worked. So I was thinking about that, looking at a draft this year with 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12. Which do you think is most likely to bust, Pete?
Can we talk about the quarterbacks a little bit? So we got
So Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, aka Throw Picks.
I think McCarthy. I think McCarthy, and I personally wouldn't even consider it a bust.
I think we had similar feelings about McCarthy. The thing that gets me about McCarthy, and it's someone pretty much every year now with how happy we are to take quarterbacks, is what I always want to see these guys and where they're slated in mock drafts after, like, as the season has ended. But these guys whose stocks rise big time after the games are done playing is a major red flag to me.
Yeah.
The biggest of all time was Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Wilson was obviously, a good player and had, like, it was a first round grade, but all of a sudden he throws for 60-yard passes at his pro day, and he's the number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And it's like, there was probably some people thinking like, Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson? And we never should have been thinking that. Trevor Lawrence was the guy for 2 full seasons. Like, teams would tank 2 years in advance to get this guy.
And not to be a prisoner of the moment, but what's become of Trevor Lawrence now?
It's a great question. We kind of talked about it in the first segment. Like, hasn't panned out.
No.
And you know who's picked right after Zach Wilson? Trey Lance. So it's like it feels like we're reaching more than ever before. And McCarthy was one of those guys who, his stock just went up and up and up after the games were played. Oh, you know what? Now that I noticed that Michigan won the national championship, I noticed he's a pretty accurate thrower. It's like, yeah, we knew that. But he was not anything special with his arm, and his offenses were not prolific in any way, and they did not open up a playbook for this guy. They were as, I don't want to say draconian, but like as old school offense as you get for a team that's playing at that level, a national championship level.
Yeah.
And and all of a sudden he's a first round pick. Teams should be trying to get him in the top 10.
I don't look.
Well,
I
the
can
Patriots
tell
look
you,
at him at 3.
I can tell you from my experience when I used to work for Football Scouts Inc., which was like the scouting service. We also worked for this agent at SFX Sports, and part of the agency was Gary Horton was this guy. He was an NFL scout. He worked in college for years as a recruiting coordinator at Arizona State and Illinois. And Hort was just amazing with people. And he could recruit. He could sit in a living room and get, like, let's say Peter Warwick, or before him, Kevin Hardy to sign with SFX. And the key was Hort would train you for the draft. And he'd take you to Arizona and he'd teach you everything about the combine. And this was new at the time. It was considered ahead of the curve. So Horton's big story was he got Kevin Hardy, I think, taken like 2nd or 3rd in the draft. And he took him from like a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick to, so you made the guy tens of millions of dollars, even back then in the late 90s. And that's what it used to, and even that was bogus, right? Like Mike Mamula, being an Eagles fan, he rose up.
Oh.
He was just this Hulk. He mastered the combine. And now I don't know what these guys do in the off season or after football to have their stocks rise. It's almost now it's based on nothing.
Yes,
because
and
nobody's running.
I think the combine might hurt more than it helps.
I think so too.
Overall, I don't know the numbers of it, but we have so many stories of those guys. I'll give you one that we talked about a little bit earlier that's close to my heart. Tyquan Thornton, Baylor.
Yeah.
Crushes it, runs the best 40 time at the combine. And the Patriots trade up to get him in the 2nd round. And he's done nothing. And I actually thought he was a good receiver out of college, unlike some of those Bryles guys that didn't have the route trees. Like, we knew Thornton was a burner. We already knew that. But then he has the best 40 at the draft, and you're trading up to get him, and 3 picks later, Pittsburgh picks George Pickens. And you lose.
Who was the guy that was taken by the Jets out of Baylor, wide receiver?
Denzel Mims.
Yeah.
Who I thought was going to be a real good,
So
a
did
good
I.
pro.
He made like big catches for Baylor. Like he would get jump balls. He would take him
tested
down.
guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was tough.
Big, long frame. Anyway, we gotta get out of here. Right. So JJ McCarthy's going to be the one. That goes in stark contrast. Scotty thinks Michael Penix is going to be Patrick Mahomes. He said it. He said it on here. He said Mahomes, Brady, Penix.
Scotty!
I said the situations were comparable, and Penix was a better comp to Mahomes than Caleb Williams.
That's fair enough.
See. Anyway, Scotty, Pete, catch Pete at 1:00 on the Pete Souza Show YouTube, live every day, just like we are here at high noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central time. We'll have it for you. Who is the second best rookie quarterback in the league? We'll find out on Sunday, and we'll have it for you on the Cam Show on Monday. We'll see you.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to. That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned kind of the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Coming up on the Pete Souza Show, Rogue Media and ESPN's own King McClure talks to us about the NBA draft.
The team is banged
Are
up
you
a
getting
bit.
undressed while we're doing this?
No.
What is happening?
And it's partially because the team has like pretty kind of
Wrong
big problems.
podcast, Mick. Wrong podcast. When you're a golfer, what is the point of no return? He was the best play-by-play announcer around, in my opinion, and he made me want to continue to watch.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We are Rogue Media Sports.